My name is Jackson Walls,
And I'm Henry Emmer.
and we are WE United. Today, we're going to be talking about voting. So, today we're going to talk about voting. Voting is a very important thing, not just now, but it has always been an important thing to exercise your right to choose leadership and how they'll affect your lives. So, we're just going to give a general conversation. We're not experts, but we do know the importance of it. We do know the sacrifices people have made for people to vote, and we're gonna be going through all that today. So, Henry, why do you think voting is important, like generally?
Okay, so voting has to be important because you're choosing who you want to lead your country, and this person, as the United States was first developed, has at least a third of the power, right? And they control many things as the executive branch of the government, the president does. And as you just probably saw over the past 4 years with Trump as the president, they can do a lot of damage, but I mean, as you saw when Obama was the president, they could also do a lot of helping people and, changing people's lives for the better. And so it really comes down to who do you want leading you? Someone who's going to help you or someone who's going to hurt you? Someone who can lead with
Right.
you.
Right, and so it's important to discuss like this, just to show what we're standing for. We're not saying, if you vote for Trump or Biden, like we're not gonna hold that against. Like, we know who you should vote for. Like,
We know
think,
who we want you
Yeah.
to vote for.
But the thing is, we want you to vote for good leadership. But generally, we want you to exercise your right to vote, because not voting is just making things worse. So voting, a lot of people in history, a lot of whether it be racist people, people in power, right? They don't want you to vote, especially people of color. They don't want you to vote because
And women and people with minorities as well.
Yeah. When you don't vote for them, change doesn't come, and they're able to stay in power for a longer time. So, not just in this election, but through elections to come in the future, and also local elections, those are important as well. Exercise your right to vote, because when you don't, they're counting on you not to do it, and that is basically a vote for the people that have ill intent and want to help themselves, basically. And you're gonna be caught in the crosswires, and it will affect you whether you vote or not. But if you vote, at least you have a choice to decide who that person can be, or what that policy can be, or what that law can be. You have a say in that, so you should exercise your right.
And when you vote, you feel like your voice is heard, right? And if you don't vote, and the person who you were, maybe secretly hoping in the back of your mind would become president, and they don't, and then you're like, because you were just expecting them to win, so you don't vote, and then they don't win, then you're like, well, I didn't use my right to vote. Maybe I could have, voted, helped others to vote, encouraged some of my friends who also didn't want to vote. And that's kind of what this video is for as well, is, to encourage people to use that right, as we've said several times. Because we are not old enough to vote, but we want to make sure the people who are, make the right decisions for them and their country, and, they use the rights that so many people have fought for over the years.
Yeah, and because we all know, the civil rights movement, and what happened during that time. Like, people sacrificed their life, were beaten. As you know, the March on Selma. John Lewis was there. They were beaten. And they went through so many things, And just so somebody like me of color can vote today, but they just wanted equality as well. And I feel like us not doing that is disrespectful in a way. Like we're not doing what they fought for us to do. It's kind of being ungrateful. It is being ungrateful, and we should exercise that right. The things that were fought for us, it's like the soldiers going off to war. That was the war. The civil rights was a war. It shouldn't have been. Everybody should have had the all men are created equal. That should have been our country, but it wasn't. So people fought to make sure that was what our country is supposed to be. 'Cause a lot of people think those words, they believe in the Constitution, I'm patriotic, or wave a flag, blah blah blah, but they don't believe in the implied words of the Constitution, because we all know the founding fathers, they weren't great, but what they wrote down is what our country should be. We can embody that, but you have to vote in order to make that happen. And don't think that whoever gets elected, Trump or Biden, in this coming election, that things are gonna automatically change. If it's Trump, I mean,
in the country.
Yeah, it might. I personally think it's gonna get worse. But Biden, like, he's gonna have to. It's gonna take a little bit of time. That coronavirus is not gonna disappear. Racism is not just gonna instantly disappear. Because I mean, he's just one man.
You have to work for it.
Right. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take all of us. We have to, like, that's why we have to exercise our right to vote, is to make sure we can get things to change. If I think a problem is, you want change, but what are you gonna do about it? Change doesn't just happen like that. You have the decision, and you have the power to make that change.
And some people are, afraid of change. Like, I got so used to, this way of life, and, what's gonna happen? Like, if I suddenly change to be more respectful to people, or are people gonna change how they think of me and stuff like that, even though that's not what should be in their minds, because what matters is what you think of yourself. And you can't, I don't know how people can be rude, and like in one of my classes we're learning about genocide. I don't get how someone can respect themselves or like themselves or be okay with themselves, and they just kill so many people and not even think about it, with just like the blink of an eye or a snap of the fingers. And,
right, it's like it just happens. Like these leaders in our countries, they want, like, some people do have a good intent to what they're trying to do, but others don't. Others want to help themselves. And the thing is, like, the voting in our country, in America, right? It's more than just the presidential election. I think that's important to say. Like, this is not gonna be. It's not just the presidential election. It's our local stuff too. Because as we see different responses to COVID-19 in different different states, it shows the leadership in those countries, states. So those states, some states have a better response than others. If you compare New York to, say like Texas or Florida, whatever it may be, even though New York is a big state, right? They had the leadership, right? They controlled it from the beginning, and they put in the work. And some other states, they don't care, so they're letting stuff run rampant. But that's leadership. You can get rid of that leadership by voting them out. But some of these people come into power because nobody put the vote in. They got their voters, their supporters to vote, like, that they spoke to a certain base, like Trump speaks to a certain base, right? And he gets them to vote, and then the other people that are kind of on the edge or on the line, or the people that don't feel like they should vote, he's expecting them not to vote. So that boosts him up.
Yeah.
It's just sad. And we're gonna talk about today later some misinformation that you might have heard. But first, I just wanted to put this out. In 2016, about 138 million Americans voted. That was like about 60% of eligible voters in America. And I'm not saying, Hillary Clinton would have got elected or Trump, but I am saying there would have been a change either way. Like, it's just
That's 40% of the people who didn't do anything.
who were eligible. Yeah, and I don't know. What do you think about that? Like,
I mean, as you were saying earlier, all the people who have done marches for their rights, not just the people of color, but also, women's suffrage. That was both of those things weren't even as long ago as history classes may make it seem like. Some of those things were just, 60 years ago, which may sound like a lot, but really, I mean, some people's parents are 60 years old, and that's, crazy how recent it actually truly was. People are fighting for your rights, and you're not using those rights that people fought for you to have. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, people died just so we can have this, and I like how you said that. Like, it's recent history. It's not. It might seem like a long time ago, but when you think about the entire history of our known world that we know of, right? Like, that's not a long time ago. And like he said, like, there's people alive that were alive during those times doing fighting are alive now. So, like, don't think it's gone away. It was like under the surface, right? Racism, it seemed maybe people thought it seemed like it disappeared, right? But really, it was always here. I discussed this with one of my friends the other day. Like, we have cameras now and phones, and the stuff happening has always been happening, but now we're able to see it and come to light.
Yeah. It's raining leaves over here.
Yeah, there's leaves falling. It's already September, y'all. That's crazy. But it's just really sad, I think, when people don't vote. Like he said, like, we're not able to vote, but one thing we are able to do is use our voice. Your voice does matter. Don't get that wrong. But your vote does really matter as well, and you have to use that to your advantage. I mean, the opportunity is right there for you, and you just have to take it. So right now in this pandemic, it's harder to vote, go out and vote, and it's really dangerous to go out and vote, like, at a physical poll. So mail-in voting is something I encourage everybody to do. I mean, Henry, like, just give like a general example, like why we should do mail-in voting instead, like, instead of just.
Well, I mean, mail-in voting would be safer with COVID, but it's obvious that President Trump wants to control the election by trying to take the mail-in ballots out of the equation through defunding the post office, which is about the dumbest thing you could do. I know that doesn't sound very, like, expert-like, but,
No,
it is dumb to take away the voice of people who care about their safety from COVID and just want to do it from home, because that's definitely the safest way.
Mm-hmm.
And if Trump is actually trying to get rid of this virus, it doesn't make sense why he would take out the safest available options and make you rather go into more dangerous environments with lots of people and voting pools.
Right. It's like it helps our situation in our country. Like, okay, this is an election year, so it's important that we want to make sure people vote, but we want to do it in the safest way possible. Oh wait, there's already a system in place for us to vote by not going to the polls. So we're going to encourage mail-in voting. And just so you know, mail-in voting and absentee voting is the same thing. So don't let people like Trump confuse you. They're the same thing. It's important, and your vote will get counted. It's important to mention there's, I think, 5 states that count the votes on election day. So don't think your vote didn't get counted. We heard maybe yesterday or a couple days ago, Trump said he encouraged people to vote twice.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. that's illegal.
Yeah,
That's a very illegal thing. So don't do it. Second, your vote will get counted. Now, so like I said, don't vote like at the last minute, but don't your vote will get counted. Me and Henry both encourage voting early. I would say
Yeah,
because it's that like it's just important
it
and
ensures
yeah.
that it'll be seen.
right. Don't procrastinate your vote. If it's something that important, I don't think it should be something you push off to the side. You know, if you have the opportunity, okay, I'm gonna do it right now. I we're not speaking to like change people's opinions on a certain uh, president or move people to vote for Biden. Like obviously we disagree with Trump
Right.
wholeheartedly, but
I mean, especially with the whole voting situation, as we want to
Mhm.
encourage voting, and he's using voter suppression to his advantage when
Yeah.
voter suppression is against the laws of the Constitution, which doesn't make sense to me.
it's institutionalized things, institutionalized racism, institutionalized power that it shouldn't be there. I think a problem is this presidency, Trump's cabinet, is they've broken so many like the little laws along the way, and then when it comes to the big stuff, like it just our system is just crumbling, and they're just using it to their advantage. And I mean, if you heard Barack Obama's speech at the Democratic National Convention, he said this it's like the end of our democracy, like could be,
Right.
and that's a scary thing. Like we're supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, right?
Yeah. And if you saw, Trump said he wanted to go for another 8 years, another 2 terms. He's like, this past term didn't count. And
Yeah.
that shows kind of like, a little bit of a dictator right there,
Right.
going against the legal amount of terms a president can have.
There's a reason why we don't do that. Like we wanted to be separate from the British, right? We wanted to have our own thing, but we didn't want to be in the same situation we were before. So we created a system where everybody has an equal chance. Like if you're born in the country, you could be the president. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be, right? Obviously, there's things along the way that prevent people from getting to certain places, but we're not supposed to be a dictatorship. And as you heard, Trump has celebrated dictators like, hey, we should do something like them.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway, something important that I would like to mention is, without a change in leadership, there's not going to be change in how things are ran in the country, right? So if you aren't satisfied with the way things are, sometimes it's best to vote for a change, right? And that's also why there's a limit on terms. Is even if it's a good president, our country can't be expected to grow, change, and develop if it always has the same leadership. You
Mhm.
need that change of leadership to get that new perspective, to get that new growth,
Yeah, I mean that's a great point to bring up. Like this nation is constantly changing. We're a melting pot of different cultures and many different ideas and ideals, right? And we're progressing to something more. I feel like young people, especially, we're constantly pushing to move forward. And whether you agree or disagree with some of the things, you can't have the same. Obviously, there's gonna be conflict, as you see now. There's a person in power who is doing some mean things, evil things, whatever. Like, they're not gonna do name calling, but he's doing bad things, right? And then there are people trying to move forward, and the actual leader wants to stay in the same place. So there's gonna be some conflict there. I mean, it's not gonna look pretty trying to separate. So vote for leaders who best, have your ideas. I know that I'm not just if the president wasn't like black every time, right? Like, oh, if he's not black, I'm not gonna vote for him. Like that's not what your mindset should be. Like he doesn't have to be from where you are, from the state or wherever your hometown. Like we don't need to have that in place, like in our voting mindset, right? Obviously, I want representation of me in power. I want to see people doing things to help my community out, to help all over the country, right? I think we should get to a point in our country where if there's a person of color in power, like it's just gonna be a normal thing. Like, oh wow, look at that, that's amazing. Our first, black president, like that's great. But it should be like, oh okay, we got a leader, right? It's just a normal thing we see, people of color. But my point is like, I know Joe Biden per se, like we're not campaigning for him or anything, but we're just saying like, we know he's not a person of color. We know he's old, okay?
But we also know what he represents.
Yeah, exactly.
And who he wants to help, what his plan is. He has a plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, Trump probably also has a plan in place, but his plan is very different than Biden's plan.
Right.
And so that's why you have to vote, is because you can't be neutral with this. The two plans are completely different, They take the country two completely different paths.
I think like it's hard to say because nobody knows the future, but but Joe Biden, he's willing to listen, I would say, and and not only is he gonna listen, but he's gonna try to bring that change. And no, he's not what we all, I would say, really want. We want something like Barack Obama, that was great. But when we think about it, like, there's no, like Henry said, you can't be neutral on this. He's gonna, it's not, we're not campaigning for him, like we said, but we think a good leader is what we need. He is old man Captain America from Endgame. That's who Joe Biden is, and he's not perfect in any way, but he does have those ideals that can bring us back to where we need to be and move us forward at the same time.
So as we are a little bit over 20 minutes, I would just like to say it's important that you go out there and vote, no matter who you're voting for. Obviously we know who we would vote for. And if you are not yet old enough to vote, have those conversations with the people who are. Talk to your family about it, talk to your friends about it, talk to your family, friends about it, have those conversations. Just show that you care about that stuff to your family. It'll impress them, and it could influence their decisions as well.
Right, you have the power. If you're our age and you can't vote, use your voice. It doesn't have to be on a platform like we're using, but you, just like you said, family members, friends, encourage them to vote, the people that can vote. Different states have different ways of like getting to polling places, whatever. So go to your state's website. We're gonna put a couple websites down in the description for ways you can like learn information. It's different everywhere. I know certain places they'll try to move the polling spots and make it harder for people to vote, and that goes deep down in our history. But just try to vote. That's the main thing. Vote. No, don't try to vote. Vote. Okay. If you're able to vote, please vote by any means necessary. But don't vote twice.
I was about to say,
don't vote twice.
Once, don't vote twice, but do vote.
Any means necessary legally, not illegally.
Alrighty, and on that note, we'll see you on our next video.
Yep, see ya.